Hey everyone, it's Ivan, KitBadger.com, out here today to tell you about SHOT Show 2023. Not the most timely SHOT Show video, but life happened to include all that ridiculous stuff with YouTube, so here we are. But for me, arguably one of the best parts actually happens before SHOT Show. So, well, the official range day for SHOT Show is on a Monday, and then SHOT Show goes through the rest of the week, Tuesday through Friday. On Sunday, Sig holds their own range day, and they're able to do it and do it well because they have all the things. One, they obviously have the budget, but they also have guns, optics, ammo, suppressors, like everything in-house, to include a whole training cadre that goes out there for the actual range day to run it. And then on top of that, professional shooters for demonstrations, all kinds of stuff. So I ended up going out there for that. Well, they had pretty much their entire lineup of guns out there, which was awesome to be able to go shoot through, all their different pistols, rifles, everything like that. They also had some presentations, one of which was on the new Rose pistol that Lena ended up kind of spearheading and ultimately presenting.
Well, Rose is that answer for them. It's a kit that when you walk out of the store, you immediately have safe storage, which is one of the number one questions that all women say. What about my kids? What about family? What about this? Doesn't work.
To be totally honest, at first glance, I'm like, great, just what the industry needs, like a girl gun. But in fairness and with perspective, especially after listening to Lena talk about it and seeing like just the passion come through, it's actually pretty cool. And I also recognize like I'm not the market. But here's what it is, like it's a turnkey gun and kind of training, like everything. So one, you have a good turnkey pistol, 365, like a variant of, which I like honestly all those variants. And on top of that, you actually have kind of the other side of it, which a lot of people dismiss because they're already in like the firearms world, which is training, to include training online and by someone that is relatable. So super difficult for women to get into shooting depending on kind of who they're around. In that, like, what are your options? You have the quintessential grossly obese NRA instructor or some juiced up like moto operator. Like neither one super conducive to just passing on information to a woman that wants to learn how to safely handle firearms. Sorry. So this actually like legitimately fills that gap. And I think it's pretty cool. With that turnkey purchase of that pistol, they get kind of everything right there. One, a good, reliable, concealable gun, shootable as well, magazines, a safe way to store it, like all of these things to include access to basically, essentially like an online portal that covers all of those things that largely you take for granted. Like simple things like how to store a gun or how to load a magazine. All those things that, yeah, maybe questions that people, new shooters, one, they don't know and maybe don't want to ask. And it's presented in a way that is easily consumable, which I think is huge. Because it's one of those where if a woman wants to get into shooting, who does she go with? Like maybe your significant other. How well does that go? Usually trying to teach your significant other something. Usually not very well. So this, again, turnkey experience, getting them knowledge, information, and then leading them on like down that road of safe ownership of firearms. And I think big picture, anything that gets more people, to include women, carrying weapons in defense of themselves, as well as their loved ones, taking personal responsibility, that's a huge win for the overall community. And yeah, rising tide floats all boats. Something else that is cool to see is talented people doing what they're talented at. So Sig shooting team was out there and actually did a couple different demos. Pretty cool just watching them work through and being so good and so proficient and watching them kind of like ramp up. Usually people have two shooting speeds where it's like as fast as I can go and actually make a shot and then like the wheels fall off. And watching them kind of work through in building up in that speed and then ultimately bringing it all together with all of them and yeah, doing some pretty cool little shooting, or exposition shooting, I guess we'll call it.
Stand by. That was good. That was good.
And then with Sig winning the whole kind of like spear contract, pretty cool demo on kind of the military side of it as well. They ended up having pretty much their entire lineup of guns out there too, and did some shooting on honestly most of them, one of which being their 6.5 Creedmoor, their spear, which I do appreciate that when they make a gun for, say, the military, they essentially offer a civilian version of it. So probably not going to have it in that same caliber that they're using for the actual spear program, but yeah, in 6.5, thing shoots awesome. I also appreciate that pretty much all their guns were suppressed, which way nicer shooting experience. And probably one of my favorite things out there was their Spear Light, so kind of scaled down version, and it was chambered in 7.62 by 39. A lot of people have tried to make that into some sort of like AR platform, and usually it epically fails. One of the reasons is magazines. If you don't have good magazines that feed reliably, like who cares? By way of example, Staccato, STI. Supposedly it's fixed now. Previously I've had terrible experiences. No one cares how good the trigger is if the gun doesn't run. I digress. But Sig actually went about it and were like, we obviously need to make magazines that run. So they actually make their magazines in-house for their gun, and thing runs. It's a lot of fun to shoot. You're like, that's cool, Ivan, but what about the official SHOT Show range day? I'll be honest, it was really cold, really windy, super long lines, and really expensive food trucks. It pretty much sucked. It was like a really bad version of like a theme park, honestly. Did I take any video? I did. Did I shoot any guns? I did not. I think the only thing I bothered taking video of was probably the coolest thing I saw there, by Radian. And so, ironically, everyone makes Glock MOS mounting plates better than Glock. Hashtag Glock perfection. And so Radian, again, going that route, basically makes a MOS mounting plate for your Glock MOS pistols, and it can basically fit, I think the footprint for it is a RMR, but then around the front, it actually has this metal piece to protect that optic, even though it's robust. And then on the back in the front, or on the front, I guess, is basically a little front sight, or I'm sorry, a rear sight. So you have a notch to use your front sight, and yeah, like it's pretty cool. And the way it's made, basically any force put on that kind of frame that comes up and around your optic is put down into the plate and straight back into the slide. So you can rack that thing as hard as you can off of pretty much any surface, and you're not just blasting your optic, putting undue stress on it. So pretty clever. Not to mention the integration of that rear sight up on the front of it. Yeah, honestly, probably the coolest thing there. Which then brings us to the rest of SHOT Show. What was the coolest thing? People talk about all kinds of different stuff that they had there that people are teasing or releasing, like Holosun's new kind of like thermal red dot, like things like that. What was the coolest thing? Honestly, for me personally, it's just the people. Being able to see friends that haven't got to see for a while because geographically separated, and then bam, like everyone's there. That honestly, for me, hands down the coolest thing. Single coolest product, I have no idea. Largely it's just little incremental things like here and there, like, oh, that's kind of clever. Like, just these little advances. I didn't see anything that like blew my mind by any stretch, but overall, just had a good time hanging out with some good people. But yeah, that kind of wraps up SHOT Show 2023. Sorry I didn't have more stuff for you, but it's what I got. And as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.